Chapter 3 Tenali Raman and the Jinx. Many years ago, the king of Vijayanagar was ruled by King Krishnadeva Raya. In his court was a minister by the name of Tenali Raman, who was a very talented and versatile person. He was a poet and every evening entertained the king and the court with his poetry. He was also very witty and stories of his humor were well known. Some people referred to him as a jester and a comedian, and the entire kingdom always buzzed with the news of his stories and practical jokes. Despite his reputation as a jester, he was a very wise man. All the ministers in the king's court knew that beneath his light-hearted behavior, he was a clever and shrewd man. A great scholar by profession, Tenali Raman also knew several languages. Soon, tales of his wisdom spread beyond Vijayanagar to cities which are now a part of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. At that time, in the town of Vijayanagar, there lived a man named Ramayya. There was a strange tale about Ramayya. People believed that whoever saw the face of Ramayya the first thing in the morning would not be able to eat anything throughout the day. Consequently, the people of Vijayanagar tried to avoid Ramayya all the time. The news also reached the king's ears. He wanted to find out the truth for himself and called for Ramayya at once. He made Ramayya stay in a room adjacent to his bedchamber for one night. As soon as the king woke up the next morning, he went straight to Ramayya's room. He had planned that the first thing he would see that morning was Ramayya's face. A little later, the king sat down to have his morning repast. He was served an elaborate meal of freshly cooked hot food. As he was about to take his first bite, he noticed that there was a fly in his food. This angered him and he threw away the platter. Determined to eat, he called for fresh food to be cooked. But by the time the food was served for the second time, he was no longer hungry. The king was now convinced that whatever the people said about Ramayya was true, and he would not be able to eat that day. Declaring Ramayya to be jinxed, the king ordered that Ramayya be hanged immediately. The soldiers were reluctant to hang an innocent man, but they feared to oppose the king's order. As they were marching Ramayya to the gallows, they met Tenali Raman. Ramayya was weeping and at his wits' end. He did not know what to do, but had the presence of mind to ask Tenali for help. Tenali thought for a minute and whispered something in Ramayya's ears. Ramayya was then whisked away by the soldiers. Before carrying out the king's order, the soldiers asked Ramayya for his last wish. He said that he wished to send a message to the king. He requested that the soldiers hang him only after he received a response from the king. Then he said to the soldiers,
"Go and tell the king that if it is true that anyone who sees my face in the morning loses his appetite for the whole day, then anyone who sees the king's face in the morning is destined to lose his life that day. Tell him that if I am jinxed, then so is he, and in fact more than me."
When the king heard Ramayya's message, he was speechless. He realized that he had been wrong to sentence Ramayya to death, and he ordered the execution to be stopped immediately. The king was ashamed that he had acted in an ignorant manner. He immediately sent for Ramayya and offered him many gifts. Fearing that the news of his rash decision would become known, the king requested Ramayya not to disclose the affair to anyone. Ramayya promised to keep silent on this matter, but he couldn't help smiling to himself as he recalled the wise words that Tenali had whispered in his ear that morning. After all, the people of Vijayanagar would not like to be ruled by a man who was jinxed. Versatile. Here, multi-talented, multi-skilled, shrewd, having sharp powers of judgment. Adjacent, next to. Repast, a meal. Jinxed, a person or thing that brings bad luck. Gallows, the structure from which people are hanged. Appetite, desire for food. Destined, fated, certain to happen. Speechless, unable to speak out of amazement. Ignorant, lacking awareness or knowledge. Say aloud. The letter I in I'll makes a long vowel sound. That is, the sound made by I is the same as its name. Listen to these words, then read them aloud. Tile, mile, pile, vile, exile, fertile, mobile, textile, reptile, automobile. In a few words, however, the pronunciation of I'll is as in chili. Simile, chili.